want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Free Like Me podcast. Guests come in here, speak their truth, leave their pain and shame behind, and walk out of this studio free like me. If you want to be a guest, reach out to me on any social media site or go to my website, freelike-me.com, and fill out a form. We'll set up a consultation call, and we'll get you in the studio here. The same thing if you're interested in my coaching program. Reach out to me, tell me a little bit about yourself. My book, Scarred, which is coming out July 29th. By the time you see this episode, it'll be available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, anywhere they sell books. Go get a copy. There's so much in there to inspire you and to lift you up and to give you hope again. My guest this week is Joe D. from Connecticut. He was shot 4 times as a 17-year-old in a drug deal gone bad. He thought he'd join the military, turn his life around. When he got out of the military, all his party buddies that he left behind were now involved in heavy drugs, and he fell back into that, wound up homeless, and then he was able to turn it all around. And we're going to hear how he did that. He became a family man, a business owner, and he thrives in life, and let's hear it. Joe D., welcome to the show.
Honor to be here, Clark. Honor to be here to finally see you in person. Man.
Yeah, we tried to do this for a while, and some family stuff came up and some health stuff. And
had my hip replaced.
Hip replaced.
Yep.
Your wife had issues, and now here we are, bro.
Golden.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Honor to be here.
Yeah, and I love, I said this to you on the phone on the way here, like I love stories where people get knocked down to their knees and rise back up, something about that inner fortitude and it's on display, and it should give strength to other people who are, suffering stuff in life.
Yeah, I was definitely a mess. I was non-functioning, when I was out there drinking and drugging. I wasn't able to keep it together. At some point earlier on I was, but then it turned to a dark place, and it just brought me in, kept me in, held me down. And like I had mentioned again, I'm just non-functioning when it comes to that. It's like one goal, and that's just drinking and drugging, and there's really nothing else. So.
And I think it's good for the audience to hear that you can become a homeless drug addict and still make it in life. You got a very successful business that you sold. You're getting ready to sell again. You became a family man. So somebody when I'm sure when you were on the street, you're like, this is just my destiny. I'm done.
Oh yeah. Things become so desperate and you become so just hopelessness is the word I want to use. And you don't think that there's a way out, until you start to meet people in recovery, men that have been there, done that, who are living one day at a time, who are living clean and sober. And what you do is you meet people like that and you see what they've been able to do. And then you kind of say, geez, wait a minute. If he can do it, I can do it. There's got to be a way. And I always believe as far down as you've gone, as far down as somebody can go, there's always a way back up. Because think about it. There's really, when you're down that low, really the only way is up other than death. Dying. Yeah. So it's either jails, institutions, or death. So I feel like there's a way for your life to turn around, for hope, and when you're down, you can pick yourself up. So
yeah. When I was starting my motivational speaking career, I just went around to like every rehab, substance abuse center there was. Like they just like drew me in, and like my story resonated. But when I would go in there, like everybody that's in that environment thinks their life is over. Like I'm in a rehab, my life is done. And I'd go in there and be like, you people are in the best position of your life. And they'd be like, thinking I got 2 heads. And I'd be like, look, there's only one way up.
Yeah.
Or there's only one way now. It's straight up. Unless you're just going to, go end it in the bathroom after this,
For somebody to get to that point, to make that step to look for help is huge. I mean, for somebody to be so down and so out, and then, like you said, you go to a treatment facility and there's people looking to improve their life. They wouldn't have just walked in there. I don't know, maybe some places are court driven, ordered and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, you've got to take it upon yourself to say, hey, this is for real. I'm sick of living this way. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to turn my life around. And like you said, you're day 1 or day 20 or however many days you're in there, you're in a great position. You may not think it because success seems so far down the road, but it's really not. It's just one day at a time. And, you feel like you're hopeless, but you can get through it. And like you said, you go to these treatment facilities and you're starting from scratch, but it's a great place to be because there's, you've realized that there's a problem and now you're doing something about it.
I had this other guy, Wesley Morrison here, and he was a homeless drug addict down in Kensington Ave in Philly. Like
those videos,
the Kensington zombies,
yes,
yes. And like, he made it off and turned his life around. He's like doing incredible. He wrote a book. So it is possible. Like just, like you're in a, I keep preaching all the time. There's seasons of life. There's going to be cold, dark winters where you might be homeless on the street and a drug addict. And then there's warm, bright springs where you're thriving in life,
With a nice breeze.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
So
you
gotta weather the storms. And,
Yeah.
So before we before we hear about your destruction on the streets, let's tell me, you're from Connecticut now. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in the suburbs. I had two parents that were there. I had my older siblings. My brother's 11 years older than me. I have another sister who's 12 years older than me. And I have another sister who's 16 years older than me. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And, my parents would go away and they would just, leave me home with my sister who was, class of 1978. And here I am, 8 years old, growing up in that time. And my sister's friends would come over and they'd blow pot smoke in my face and, hand Joey a beer, flash their boobs and stuff like that. And here I am, 8 years old, and they're high schoolers. And so, like, it was normal to me. Like, my parents weren't alcoholics. Neither one of my parents were alcoholics. My dad was tough. My dad was a tough guy. He was a Korean War veteran. He ruled. He was a disciplinarian. He was tough. So, but by the time I came along, my mom had me when she was 40 years old. And in 1972, that was pretty rare. And so I was like an afterthought, I was kind of like came along and my parents really just let me do anything. So
they were done parenting. Like,
yes,
Joe can fend for himself.
Plus I had older siblings, that was the other thing. So, growing up, I had older cousins. And so, I play music, as you know, I'm a drummer. And so my cousin, who was actually my godfather, who was much older than me, I'd go over his house. He had drums set up in the basement. I'd hang out, play drums over there. And I was a kid. I'd come home. So like by the time I was like 13 or 14 years old, I was very advanced. I mean, saying as a person, I was like a 13-year-old, but I was almost behaving like an 18 or 19-year-old because of my experience of having older siblings, older cousins, that type of thing. And so I fell right into kind of, I had a girlfriend when I was a kid and the proms and all that kind of thing. And, I was doing some sports. I was playing some football, weightlifting, things like this, and, in different bands. But the bands I was in, I was like 13 or 14, but the guys were all like 18, 19 because I could play really well as a 13-year-old kid playing drums. I could hang with 18-year-old guitar players. So here I am around that vibe, out playing parties and stuff. And I'm really young hanging out with older people, and that's not a good thing in the 1980s, especially for somebody like me. So I started smoking pot. I was 13, 14 years old, smoking pot, drinking. By the time I was 16, I started doing some coke and getting in trouble, like smoking pot in the morning before school, walking in, and then just like vegging out for the rest of the day, wandering the hallways and just not paying attention. My grades were horrendous. I was always a bad student. The school would call my house, and my parents at this point just really didn't care, And then finally, smoking pot all the time just made me unmotivated. And then, started to do a little bit of coke and getting in some trouble. And then that, thing happened. And
so you can be a high school student without the greatest grades. Your grades were crap, right?
Terrible. Math for the daily living, stuff like that. Yeah.
And still go on to own and run a successful business and sell it and, make a good chunk of change. Yeah. And so,
It's funny because I see like I'd go around town in a suit and tie because I moved after the military, moved back to my hometown, and I'd go around in a suit and tie. Not now, but back, 10, 15, 12 years ago, you'd wear a jacket and tie more than now. After COVID, things changed, but I'd wear a jacket and tie, and one of my teachers would see me like in a coffee shop and their mouth and just shake their head. And I'd say, you know what? I ran a company with 30 people with math for the daily living. How's that for you? So they see me and they just couldn't believe it because remembering how I was, that was like the furthest thing from their mind, me being a professional.
So you're partying, it's the 80s, and you go to buy like a dime bag of weed.
Yep. So we're at a party one night, just in town, like a keg party at somebody's house. And, everybody's out. So we said, oh, let's drive into New Haven. Let's go grab a bag of weed. I had like $10 on me. So we go down to New Haven. We go to one spot that we usually go. The guy wasn't there. We go to another spot where we kind of knew. So we get out. The guy comes over. He says, get out of the car and follow me, which was kind of seedy to begin with. I get out. I go to follow him. He goes, give me the money first. And I said, kind of like, no. He went to grab for the money. I pulled away. He tried to take a swing at me, missed. And so I went to go back in the car. And that's when somebody came off a porch with a 9mm machine gun and shot me 4 times. They shot me once in my right arm, twice in my right leg, once in my left leg. And they severed my femoral artery in my right leg, severed in half. I've got a scar down the inside of my leg, severed in half. And I was, by the time I got to the hospital, I was dead on arrival, DOA.
So you're bleeding out.
Oh, totally bleeding out, completely severed artery. And I just went into shock. I don't remember much after that. I did have an out of body experience.
You did?
Oh yeah. So I'm riding to the hospital, and and all I remember, I'm in shock. Remember, so I'm in the ambulance, going to the hospital. And there's a woman in the ambulance with me and I'm saying, am I going to die? Am I going to die? And she's like, no, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. You're not going to die. I'm like, am I dying? Am I dying? So about 2 days later, one of the nurses on duty and one of the EMTs show up to my room. And I was at St. Raphael's Hospital. They come to check on me, and I said, hey, I got to ask you guys, who was the woman in the ambulance that night that drove me to the hospital? And they said, there was no females on duty that night, Joe. There was no females on duty that night. And looking back on it and thinking about it, I believe it was the person that I saw was my aunt, my mother's sister, who had died about 8 years prior to that from stomach cancer. I believe that was my aunt Dolly, who was there telling me, stroking my arm, telling me I wasn't going to die. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
And, it just brings me back to that, time. And I'm just so grateful to be here, brother. I am. I really shouldn't be alive today, and I am. Somehow I am,
So you got shot 4 times over a friggin' lousy $10 bag of weed.
Weed? Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was the 80s. New Haven was rough back then. Look, I get it. Whoever did it, they never caught the person, but I'm sure they grew up in a rough, time. It was probably rough for them. Maybe gang, hey, for you to get indoctrinated into this gang, you have to shoot somebody or something like this, whatever it may be. I mean, it happened. I forgive the person, whoever it may be. And it was just a rough time back then. Yeah. So.
Well, what's it feel like to get shot?
Well, that's the thing. It happened so quick. Like I said, it felt like I thought somebody threw like M80s or fireworks at us, but at first it was like a burning feeling. But then you go into shock right away. Within seconds, I want to say probably within 20 seconds, 30 seconds, I'm in shock. And then waking up from the surgery, I was worried. I thought I was going to lose my leg. They were talking about possibly having to amputate my right leg because your nerve in your leg, your main nerve runs right next to your artery, and it missed it by millimeters. All of this stuff is just really a miracle. I'm a miracle. But so, I woke up and I was sore in pain from the surgery and all that stuff. And I ended up in the hospital. I stayed there for about 3 weeks. Now I'm a junior in high school. So all my friends are coming up to visit me in the hospital. And, my parents went through a lot. I mean, my dad wrote out this big kind of like a diary of what had happened, and I didn't find that diary until after he passed away and some paperwork that he had. And I read it. I'm thinking to myself, geez, as a father myself, to think about what my parents had to go through and deal with that, and people still bring it up today, even 35 plus years later. It's something that you don't forget, I guess, when you see me or something. And so at times it hits me weird. Some people bring it up in a negative manner, some people bring it up in a positive manner, but I don't let it get to me in the negative manner at all, just because I feel pretty good for my accomplishments. But it was scary, it was scary, and it definitely gave me PTSD for sure.
How quick did you get to the hospital? Like, do you know?
Well, what happened was my buddies, I mean, we're all kids, 17 years old, and they got a little bit lost and ended up taking me to this little medical center that was up the street. It probably took from the time that I got shot to the time I got into the actual emergency room, probably like 40 minutes.
40?
30
and
minutes.
And your femoral artery is severed?
Yes.
Dang.
Probably 40 minutes, probably 30 minutes to, and then by the time the doctor comes in to do, the surgery and stuff like that. Yeah.
Why? Because they took you to this medical center first and then got an ambulance from there to the hospital?
Exactly. They were confused, scared, lost. My buddy I was just laying there deep, pretty much dead. And he was going down one ways and all this stuff. And he just saw this medical center and pulled, and there happened to be a person there. They called the ambulance. By the time the ambulance got there, and then it's another 8-minute ride from where the medical center is to where the hospital is. Then you get out and then you're in the ER. Then finally somebody, they're like, this person's in critical condition. And basically they started working on me from there. So it was like 10:30 at night when it happened. So it was kind of, I don't want to say off hours. The hospital's 24/7, but the doctor that came in had to come in from he came from home and to do the surgery on me. So, yeah.
So they're just pumping you full of plasma and blood
to keep you alive.
Yeah, until he gets there.
Yeah. And then he got there, and then I got the surgery, and I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. And then I came back out, and I came back to school on crutches, so that was another odd kind of, to experience that as a 17-year-old kid, and I keep going back to post-traumatic stress disorder. You try to hide the fact that you're hurting inside because something really crazy. I mean, how many people do you meet that were shot 4 times with a 9mm machine gun? I mean, usually the person's dead, right? So it was just a lot for me. It was a lot for me to deal with. I started to have more problems after that. Then I felt invincible, Clark. Then I felt like this, and I was like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to stab me? What? Like, I've been shot 4 times. Like, I felt, quote unquote, bulletproof. Like, nothing's going to stop me now, And that kind of did, I don't want to say in a way, kind of motivated me to go into the Army, The Army thing was more like I was just so, just out of it and just out of control. But I was still physically in shape. Like, I was still running, lifting weights. I was physically in shape. And so I looked at the Army as almost like a challenge. I knew I wasn't going to college.
And they would let you in with being shot?
Oh yeah, because physically I'm not, physically I was a specimen. I mean, I was 170 pounds and I was running 5 miles in 29 minutes. I mean, I was lifting.
How soon after you were shot are you back running?
Oh, it was probably by that summertime. It was happening in April. The shooting happened in April, so by August, September, I was running again, working out again pretty much right away. I mean, so as soon as everything healed up, the when you're young like that, you heal quick.
You can't hide the fact that it was done in a drug deal. So you got that hanging over your head.
Oh, that was all in the news and Channel 8 Action News and my name and all that kind of thing. So yeah. Oh yeah. I felt like if I went to the Army to get out of, get away from town for a bit, experience life, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Then, like I told you, I was stationed over in Germany and I did really good things. I excelled in the military. I mean, I went to paratrooper school. I went to air assault school. I was in Operation Uphold Democracy. I was in Haiti for 10 months. I got an Army Expeditionary Medal. I was just the Master of Ceremonies, the Grand Marshal at the Veterans Day Parade last year in my town. So I got done up in my old uniform, had to have it taken out, of course. But, I excelled in the military. I did 4 years and I did really well. I stayed out of trouble. I stayed away from, I didn't smoke any pot. I didn't get any, drinking beers and stuff on the weekend, but I was on point when I was when I was on duty, I was on point and I excelled. They wanted me to re-enlist, but after Haiti and after spending 10 months in Haiti and seeing kind of like all that, and I just didn't want to get deployed again. I had enough and I wanted to come back home and start in business, so I did great in the military, came home, but what happened is when I came home, all my friends that I was smoking pot and drinking and snorting coke with, 4 years later, everybody's doing freebase and smoking crack and doing heroin and, doing all the heavier stuff, and I fell right into that. And it didn't take long. Like all of a sudden I went from this, squared away soldier, to I get out and like within a couple months, it's like, what's going on with Joe? Like, he's not, at the time I was doing different. I was working for a stonemason. I wasn't in the professions yet. I didn't get into the professional life yet. I was working for a stonemason. I was delivering some sheetrock. I was doing the recycling truck, flipping cans for recycling. And I was waiting tables at night. I was still working, but then it got to the point where it started to become unmanageable for me. And I started to kind of like, no-show Joe was my nickname. It was like right. I'd stop showing up for work and then I'd make promises that I never kept. And I was lucky though, Clark, because I'm going to tell you that part didn't last that long because I was so out of control, so unmanageable, and I couldn't function that lifestyle, either you die or you get clean and sober, I feel like. And what happened was it was only about, by the time I got out of the Army, by the time things got out of control, and by the time I went for treatment, it was maybe only like less than 3 years.
Okay.
It was less than 3 years.
So how long were you able to be a partier and still work after you got?
Not very long.
Like
within a year. Yeah.
Okay. So then 2 years of just full force. How long till you became homeless?
Pretty soon. I'd say it was like just under 2 years of full blown, unmanageability. I'd say I was only homeless for probably maybe about a month and a half, because I would, move and then kind of like, come up with a little bit of money before I get evicted. So, and then by the time it was out of control, I'd say, yeah, less than 2 years by the time.
And how are you getting once you couldn't manage the drugs and work? How are you getting money for the drugs?
Yeah, so I would somehow pull it together in little spots, work and come up with like $1,500 or something like that. I used to do this thing where I'd rent my car out, stuff like that. I still had a car, I was still able to like kind of work and kind of make a couple $100 here and there, like I'd wait tables for, like maybe a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, come up with $300 or $500 and then just go out on a tear for 2 or 3 days, and then
do it again.
Yeah. And I was fortunate because I had family, my parents and my siblings and my cousins and stuff were like, hey man, you need to stop. Like people were started to get on me. I was lucky that I had some family that got on me, but then there was a point where I think it was my brother that really sat. I think my mom and dad got divorced by this time. As soon as I left for the Army, my parents got separated at that point, got divorced. But when I got back, my brother, I think, sat my mom down and said, you've got to just disown him and just let him, so that's what happened towards the end, like the last 6 months of the whole excursion of my craziness. My mother really they all just said no, like not return phone calls. And
so they weren't enablers.
No,
they cut you off with the tough love.
Cut me off with tough love. They cut me off with tough love until I was like, hey, I'm ready to do something. And I was lucky because I had the VA. I had no health insurance then, but as a veteran, I was broke. So I went to the VA hospital in West Haven, Connecticut, and I was able to fill out some paperwork. And that's where I started my journey to get sober, to get clean and sober. The VA helped me. I went up to Northampton, Massachusetts. They had a 30-day program up there.
Did you go to the VA thinking I got to get clean?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did?
Oh, I showed up one day and I was like, I'm done. I need to do something. I cannot continue on. I don't want to continue on like this. And towards the end, Clark, I knew like I'd be spots of, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? Like, I've been through enough already, you know, and shot 4 times. Like, my brothers and the rest of my family does. There was no other addicts in my immediate family. I mean, I have uncles and cousins that were alcoholics and stuff like that. I'm not going to say it doesn't run in my family. It does, but my parents and my siblings were not, you know? And so seeing that and me being so different, you know, and making excuses, and I just had enough. I had enough of sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Only the addict can decide that for themselves. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's torture for the family and close friends to sit back and watch. But like, I just tell it, people reach out to me all the time. How can I help my son, my daughter, my husband, you know, struggling with this? And I'm like, you really can't. Like your son, daughter, husband has to decide they're ready to change. You know, I had my brother, you know, I found him dead 2 years ago on our kitchen floor. And it just like, I pleaded with him, you know, begged him, screamed at him.
Did he get sober? I mean,
He got sober for 8 months, you know, but he was just like he was like dry brush waiting to catch on fire because he had no healthy, you know, mechanisms.
Was he going to meetings and stuff?
No. He just stopped, and then you know, we're all just waiting for the hammer to come down. It did come down.
It did. But I think it's just so important for people, you know, when you get sober to, now you've got to start really, you know, meetings, going to AA meetings, going to NA meetings, whatever your choice is, to however you want to do, and connecting with people that are sober friends that you're doing activities, you know, like you're playing music sober, you're going to concerts sober, you're going to restaurants sober, you're doing all these things sober, so you're not around, you know, that element of, and, you know, even being in a bar or something, or a restaurant where you're eating and people are drinking, you know, I don't feel I don't feel uncomfortable because it's just not my shtick. But it's like, you know, when I hang around with my buddy, we go to concerts, you know, the guys I'm going with are all sober people. So it's like, you're living a life of, you know, you're going out to events and enjoying life in a sober manner, you know.
Yeah, that whole adage about people, places, and things. I mean, it's if you you know, the saying is, if you stand outside a barber long enough, you're going to end up with a haircut.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're around people who are partying, around a bar, you know, you're going to end up partying.
Yeah.
You know, so like when I got out of prison, you know, I was already 5 years sober, and you know, all my close friends, you know, they still partied and they wanted to take me out, and you know, we went out for dinner here and there, and you know, they would start drinking, and I just didn't want to be around.
Oh, so you got sober one? Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, when I was locked up. So by the time I got out, you know, I already had years.
Strong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But just still getting out and just being around and going to some parties where everybody was getting messed. Yeah, I wasn't into it. Like, and you know, to this day, like 2 hours, even at a family function or whatever, 2 hours, I'm like,
Irish exit.
I get squirrely. Yeah,
I do the Irish exit.
Yeah,
we just vanish. Yeah, because I really don't have. I have no patience for somebody who's intoxicated, like drunk, and you know, I was just at a party over the weekend with my wife and some friends and stuff, and just somebody talking to me, and it's just gibberish. You know, it's just, and I get it. Like repeating themselves and getting very emotional, and you know, like slurry and all that kind of thing. And, you know, where, you know, I understand, I've been there. I get it. But it's like, after like, you know, 70 seconds of that, it's like, you know, it's kind of like, it reminds me of that. I don't want to be that way, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So you go to the VA, and so they send you to a treatment center?
30-day treatment center. You know, I did great with it. Met a couple of really solid people that I'm actually still in touch with now. This was back in 90, 97, 98. You know, I get out and you know, I come back home. My you know, my mom lets me back in, she was renting a condo, and my mom let me back in. And then I got serious and started working. And then that's when I kind of learned the business that I'm in, the insurance business. I learned that. I learned how to do it, learned how to, started to work for a company in New Haven, learned the business for like a year, and then went out on my own. I started my own little place. And then in late 99, late 99, I partnered with my brother and we went and bought a company in town and ran it for 21 years. And during this time, so I had met my wife after I got sober. So my wife, I met my wife, we had kids, the business thing, and things just, everything turned around then. Everything turned around in my life then, and I'm just blessed, and always stayed connected in AA. Again, like I said, sober friends, doing sober things, just doing the right thing.
For a guy whose grades in high school were squat, how were you able to get into the insurance business?
You just get a license. It's like I took a correspondence course. I got my license. It took about 3 weeks to get my property and casualty insurance license to be a salesman, and just started knocking on doors, just cold calling people. Hey, my name's Joe. I'd like to have the opportunity to talk to you about your insurance when it comes up for renewal. It's no obligation. If I could save you some money, get you some better coverage, would you be interested? And it took off. I started writing some big accounts, and I started out with the place I started out with in New Haven. My draw was $125 a week. I started with working just from scratch, and then I went out on my own. And my sister had experience in the insurance business. I brought her on. She helped me. I did that for like a little over a year, and back to the opportunity that came up with my brother to buy a company in town, and we did that and ran it. But yeah, I started literally from scratch, literally with yellow pages and a stack of business cards. That's it. I started with a stack. There's no, it's not like a thing where you work at an insurance company and they start you with a salary and all this stuff. It's not that. I mean, you don't even get benefits. Like, you have to start out. It's really organic. It's really, you start out from scratch. Like I said, knocking on doors, one account at a time. I was fortunate. I learned from this gentleman that I worked with, who owned the company that I started with, this old Jewish guy who was really smart, who was a grinder, who saw, that in me, and kind of mentored me for a little while, and kind of helped me get going. So yeah.
Back in the day, I worked on Wall Street, and they did the same thing. Like, all us new hires.
Oh, were you a stock guy? Or?
Yeah, I added my Series 6 and 67 for doing mutual funds and annuities.
Kidding. So it's similar. It's similar.
Well, and they had like 6 new hires, and they put us into a room, and they came with phone books, and they plop, plop, plop. You start with A's. You start with B's. You C.
It's like Chris Gardner.
Like, you're just
it's like Chris Gardner. Yeah.
And then the manager is like, all right, Fredericks, pick a town in New Jersey, and we're gonna find their Main Street, and you're gonna go up and down Main Street, going into every business, and I'm gonna listen to you and watch you, and it was tough.
You must have been good at it, though. I bet you. I mean, what year was this? In the 80s?
This was in the 90s.
90s. Yeah.
Mid 90s.
What was that? The Pursuit of Happiness. Chris Gardner. You ever see the movie with Will Smith? You've got to see it. Oh, Clark.
I might have.
The Pursuit of Happiness. It's the Chris Gardner story. Homeless in San Francisco. Nothing to do with drugs and alcohol, but just like a guy down on his luck, trying to sell medical equipment to start, and then he gets his stockbroker's license. He does this thing with Payne Weber, this internship, and Chris goes around doing, I got to send it to you. You got to see it. And Will Smith plays Chris Gardner in the movie, and it's just incredible. It's incredible. And this story goes, years later, sold his business for $60 million, and now he goes around the world and just talks. So same kind of thing, though. Yeah.
So you and your brother buy this business, and you got 30 employees at one time?
Yeah, that's
wow.
Yeah. So, including us, it was 30 people altogether. Yeah.
So from a degenerate high school student to shot up 4 times in a drug deal, to homeless drug addict doing heroin, crack, cocaine, whatever you get your hands on,
all of it,
to now all of a sudden you're running an insurance business with 30 employees.
It was almost like I was like, I look back on it now, and even like my wife talks about it, like, I'm like, I want to say the word blinded, but I just didn't, failure was like never came into my mind as an option. Like I never thought like, oh, I'm going to do this and oh, I'm not going to do good at it or I'm going to fail, because I'm the type of guy, Clark, that if I see somebody doing something, whether it's lifting weights or playing music or, martial arts or whatever it is, or, and I see somebody doing it and they're doing it well, I'm like, I can do that. Like if I could see, I have this part of me that it's like, if I could do that, I know I could do that. And I just saw the people that were in the business and I'm like, gee, that guy's not really that smart. Not that you have to be smart, but you have to be kind of motivated is the word I want to use. And I would say, oh, geez, I could, if somebody's doing something well, I feel like I can do it well. I have nothing really holds me back. I don't know if that's part of my personality or if it's just the way guys like you and I are, I mean, like with you, I mean, you're doing this, you wrote a book, you've turned your life around. Your story's very unique, as is mine, but it's like, then all of a sudden, maybe it's not. There's been a lot of people involved in violence. There's been a lot of people involved in abuse. They're out there. Some people don't talk about it. Some people don't bring it to light and share about it, where somebody like yourself, you're doing this and you're doing it well. And, this could even if it motivates one person to say, wait a minute, if he can do it, I can do it.
Whether it's a person listening to this or it's a parent whose son or daughter is just like dragging their ass and not getting anywhere in life, it can be turned around at any time. That person, though, has to decide they want to turn around. The parent can't decide.
No,
but
no.
And you had to decide, like, well, how the hell did I become a homeless drug addict? Like, what the hell am I doing?
This isn't me. Yeah, it was me and it did happen, but it's like, I don't want to be this way. Like, yeah, like you're saying, you have to make a conscious decision to say, I don't want to be this way anymore. I want to be a winner. I don't want to be a loser. I want to be a winner. I want to heal. I want to excel. I want to, help myself to help others, that type of thing. And yeah, what do they say? You can lead a dog to water,
horse to water.
You can lead a horse to water, that type of thing. But yeah, you've got to have it. You've got to be motivated to do it yourself. Yeah.
You got clean, you got sober, you're doing good, you got this business, and down the road you did have a relapse.
Yep,
Though.
Sure.
Do you think success got to you? Did you get lackadaisical because things were going so great?
So yeah, success did get to me a little bit. Back to, I felt kind of bulletproof in a way, and I started living kind of like not a sober way, like for me, I have to make sure that, I live, the right way, and I wasn't living the right way, and it caused a relapse. The only good thing about it was it gave me the opportunity to take another look at myself, to step back and take another look at myself, and it was short-lived.
So how long were you sober until you relapsed?
Oh, I was sober almost 12 years.
Okay.
I was sober. See, I got sober. I was young. I mean, I was 26 when I got sober. I was pretty young. And so 12 years later, I had a slip up, and it was very short. It was only for about 6 months. And the thing of it was so weird because I was still connected in the program. I was still in AA. I was still doing all this stuff, but I wasn't like living right. I was doing, some things that I shouldn't be doing. And, and the business thing too, the success thing. Yes. The success thing, that was like, I kind of like pumped up my ego too much, like I started to get like, oh, I could do this. I can get away with that. I could, I've got money coming in. I'm successful, so I deserve it. It's almost like I deserve it. But then I did, and then it was awful.
So I just so you understand, you started doing bumps of coke during the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like I'd be at the office and just do them, and then and it just it got out of control really quickly. And not that it was so crazy, and I went way back down again. I could see the writing on the wall. Like I could see like this is going to turn into something that's not good. That type of thing. But then, I started doing it, and then I had to raise my hand again and say, I'm coming back, type of thing.
Did your wife know what was going on?
She didn't know right away because my wife never saw me drink or use drugs or anything. But then finally I fessed up to it. I said, look, I'm doing this. I don't want to do this. I know it can start to be something pretty bad down the road. I want to nip this in the butt now before it gets out of control. So yeah.
So you went back working the program
Yeah.
hard again?
Yeah, went back, got rededicated again. I was still going to meetings, not as much as I was, but then I said, okay, I'm going to do a 90 and 90. I'm going to go back, I'm going to raise my hand. I made a mistake. I went out, I picked up, I drank, I drugged, blah, blah. You know, I'm doing the wrong thing. But then, boom, 90 and 90, which means 90 meetings in 90 days, you know. And I almost did like, I don't want to say like a self rehab, but, you know, all of a sudden I kind of went back to step one again, started working the steps diligently again, and got back into, you know, really getting back into immersed into sobriety again is what I did.
And then how long now are you?
Well, now that
since then,
that's
like another 12, 13 years?
Yeah, it's 13 years again now. Yeah, 13
so
years
you got
again.
about 25, 26 years with that
With the slip in the
couple
middle.
month
Yeah.
slip up.
It was like 6 months of a slip. Yeah, it was around 6 months of a slip. Yeah, yeah. So it's been, you know, like 25 years connected to the program. Yeah. Yep.
And are you still going to meetings now?
Yeah. See, COVID got weird.
Yeah.
You know, COVID got
do
weird.
them online?
I was doing Zoom meetings. Yep, doing some Zoom meetings, and not going to as many as I was before. But now, again, this kind of motivated me coming to see you back in after my hip replacement surgery. I started going again, and yeah, so I am back going to more meetings now than I was before. Absolutely, yes.
What else, like, for healthy living besides meetings do you do?
Well, I do the music, you know, so I play music, and I actually got
Is that like therapy for you?
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. Just because of the fact that, you know, you're when you're doing it, you're not thinking about anything else. You're just doing your music thing. You know, you got your headphones on, you're playing. Or I have a friend that comes over who's sober as well, and we play together, you know, off each other, and then we go out and we go get pizza afterwards in New Haven, and it's just a great experience. So that's a good thing. And then I kind of got addicted to golfing. I mean, I don't look like I have a golfer's body, you know, definitely not, but I got into golfing a lot. I've traveled overseas to play, and I play a lot of golf now. Yeah.
How many of those guys that you were buddies with when you came back from the military who were hitting the harder drugs and you got right into it with them, how many of them are gone?
A fair amount of people. Yeah. I'd say out of that core group, there's like 4 or 5 people I could think of that are deceased now, that have died in the last 10 to 15 years. Some of them, like, you know, 2012, 2014, those years, some a little bit prior. And then I've got a couple friends that I've disassociated with, you know, had to block altogether, that are still out there.
Still
that are
partying
struggling.
hard?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That are still struggling. Yeah. Can't keep it together. You know, I've got one friend that gets money every month from the VA. That's not helpful. That's like enabling, you know? So yeah.
You know, so many guests come in here, and it's that one drug that, like, soon as they did it, you know, whether it was first time they shot up heroin, or first time they smoked crack, or first time they did a line, or took a pain pill, and they were just like, you know, like the heavens were singing to them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Was there one that really, like, just like, this is the bomb?
You know, I guess when I first did coke, I'd say that was one that, you know, that was one. I'd say, like, out of it all, pot was my like starter. That's like where I kind of started using, was pot. And then I'd say that's kind of where all the bad roads led me to, you know, starting from pot, and that drew me to the harder stuff, the bad stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So
People always question, is pot a gateway drug?
for me it was.
Yeah.
For me it was. Oh, absolutely. For me it was. And then I see people now that smoke it, and I'm like, my God, I couldn't even imagine. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, when I relapsed, I didn't smoke pot like that time back 12, 13 years ago. I didn't. And I just couldn't imagine doing it now. I smell it. You know, you smell it because it's legal now. So it's everywhere. And I smell it, and I'm like, wow, we never had pot like that, you know? So it's like,
I mean, and then you gotta ask yourself, like, why do I need to numb myself like this? What like, you know, if you got goals and dreams, and you're numbing yourself at the same time as you're chasing goals and dreams, you're making that road a hell of a lot harder.
very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. Yeah,
You know,
very
I
hard.
saw this interview it was a clip on Instagram of Grant Cardone, the big real estate mogul.
Yes.
And this kid came up to him, in a hotel lobby, and he's like, I'm gonna be just like you someday, and I quit drinking, I just smoke a little weed, and he's like, Grant's like, stop right there. He's like, you're never gonna be like me.
No.
He goes, if you're smoking weed, it's never gonna happen,
No.
bro. He goes, why do you need to smoke weed? He goes, if you want to be like me, then you better get clear-headed and clean and go all for it.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. You can't be doing anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean,
Like, I think now, like just what I'm trying to accomplish and like the things I got to do. And if I was waking up hungover, I went out to dinner Saturday night, and I'm just thinking, like, back in the day, I would have got bombed at Saturday night. I had so much to do yesterday, and like I would have woke up like just wanting to be on the couch with my head on a pillow. Like, you can't accomplish.
there's no
squat,
room. No,
man.
there's no room for it. There's just no. If you're gonna, and especially somebody like myself, and I'm sure you're the same way. It's like it just gets in the way of everything. It just gets in the way of your goals, your dreams. And again, back to the I'm not functioning. I can't, like, it's a very short period of time that things get very out of control quickly for me. And I'm just not the type of functioning, like back to that relapse that I had. It was getting bad. And I could see that it was going to be a very short time from then that I was going to become not functioning again. And so that's why I nipped it in the butt when I thank God I am so lucky, because there's so many people that leave and never come back again after something like that, But I go back to where I felt like I was very young, like I got sober at 26, and a lot of my friends that are my age that are sober now didn't get sober till they were like 40. Or 42 or 44, or they've been sober for 10 years and they got sober at 43, I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just saying that I got sober for somebody at a fairly young age, I felt like, and I thought, that again, the lying, the manipulating, it lies to you. Oh, you can do just a little bit. You'll be fine. Nobody's going to know. You can sneak around and do a little bit here and there and still like present yourself as, this, and it can do that for maybe the first short period of time, but then eventually it's gonna be like a shark attack, man, where it's gonna be bad. There's gonna be blood in the water, and it's gonna be bad.
Right.
It's gonna be bad. But I guess it's to that whole thing, like you said, either you want it or you don't want it. And if, like you said, if you want to be successful, if you want to be one of the winners and stuff, you really can't have any of that, and you can't be. Hey, I'm going to drink on Sunday night with dinner. And then next thing you know, you drink 2 bottles of wine and you have an appointment at, 8:45 to see a client. You've got to be on spot, and you're in there like, and it doesn't work. So back to your point of that young gentleman meeting that real estate mogul, and the guy saying, you can't be smoking and drinking even a little bit. You got to keep it on point. So yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
People are like, oh, I need to smoke weed to just, it relaxes me and calms me down. Like, go exercise.
Read a book.
Do something. Meditate.
Yeah.
Stay away from the substances. That
I mean, do you think mental illness though? I mean, some people have mental illness, and I don't know. Maybe I'm not making an excuse for anything, but I think maybe some people have mental illness, and maybe it helps them or something. Or I don't know. I just don't. You're like me. I don't believe in it. I just don't.
I mean, being locked up in prison, like almost everybody in there was off.
Yeah.
It's just like that's sort of why they're in there. They're off, and
but not stupid people though.
No, I mean,
no.
What lands people in prison is basically you could say three things. No family unit, no education, and addiction.
Yep.
So you put those 3 things together, and you're going to end up in prison.
You're gonna, for one thing or another.
Yeah.
For one thing or
and
another.
And that's pretty much what everybody, you're going to have occasional, white collar dude in there for something,
stealing, $20
money
million
laundering or something.
Yeah.
But it's basically
mobsters, mafia guys, some mafia guys.
It's horrible family life. no education, and addiction.
Yeah.
Those are the three things that land people in prison. Like I was shocked. I've said this before. You know, you always have the same officers that work your tier. You know, morning shift.
The guards, the prison guards.
the prison guards.
Yep.
And one day, this morning guy was out, and a different guy showed up, and we had the GED classes on our unit, and there would be 4 guys at most that would go out there for GED classes.
Yep.
And we had this new guard one day, and he called GED classes, and he did a roll call for every cell who should be coming out. It was literally every single cell, and he ran off all these names, and none of the guys go out. Like
these are guys that never graduated high school.
And he's just like cell 201, cell 202. You know, he's calling the name out, and he's like, "Let's go, come out for GED." And they still don't. You know, like, and I'm like, "You're in here. You got nothing to do."
Yeah, I was gonna
like,
say
you could be getting your GED.
How are the meetings? But there's a lot of I didn't sobriety.
Go to. They had a unit they wanted to put me on, and my therapist advised against it because she said, you know, like, you get in there, you're just doing AA every day. She's like, and I'm not going to be working with you. She's like, we need to get to the core root of your problems. I want to address that.
Yeah.
She's like, if you do AA without addressing your
what
core
the real
root,
what
right.
the real
so she's
problem is. Yeah.
She's like, you know, let's you and I just work together on your childhood.
So yours
issues.
was a PTSD from your childhood experiences. Yeah.
And she came to me my very first day in prison, you know, and said, let's start therapy. And
yeah.
like, and then
because they know your story.
Yeah. She followed me on the news.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then the biggest healer was a group therapy class for childhood trauma, where it was just like, you could have been in there. It wasn't just, you know, sexual abuse.
It was whatever, violent
Oh my God,
thing,
the parents did horrific stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you know, that was the, and when you're in with different races and religions, and there was Muslim, there was, you know, and everybody had a common thing, trauma, you know, and so that was really special to be involved in that.
Yeah,
you know?
PTSD is, for me, is something that it's always there, but then it kind of quiets, you know, and then there's times when it starts to peak again. Anytime I get angry, I start to get confused, and like, if I'm ever like in a situation where I get angry, and it's over dramatized, and I get very fluttered and confused and kind of stuttery and half in it, half out of it. And I think it goes back to that PTSD, back to the shooting of a very violent, very deliberate, very violent, bloody, gory type thing, where, you know, it takes me back to that situation then. And it's tough. I mean, it's, you know, thinking about it, like, I go, like, you know, when you see movies and people are getting shot up, and, you know, and then there's the whole, and again, the guy who shot me was a black guy, you know, but I'm like, no, that's like the furthest thing from my mind is any stupid the still thing with racism to me is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, who cares what somebody looks like? It's so stupid, you know? And I grew up in a way, like, my father was, you know, had friends. If you look at his old football team, the 1949 Branford High School football team, you wouldn't believe it, but it's like, you know, 6 of the guys were black guys. I mean, it's just that, to me, that never mattered to me, you know, but the media tries to portray a lot of white against black against white, and it's just so ridiculous to me. It really is. I mean, that's just I don't know if that's because we grew up in the Northeast or in the military. Like, I go to the Army, and my battle buddy's a black guy from Indiana. I mean, I would have jumped on a hand grenade for the guy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'd put my life in front, you know, to protect my fellow soldier. I'd put my life on the line for them. So, but back to the PTSD thing. Yeah, it quiets, but when it comes out in a kind of a crazy way, you know?
Aggressive.
Yeah.
And almost like everything's swirling in you.
Yeah. I don't know if, you know, you experience some of that. I mean, I obviously don't get it as angry as I used to be. Now I could go, que sera, you know, I let things roll off a lot more. But when it's, something that you can't control, something that's frustrating. And back to I wanted to bring up the work burnout thing, we didn't really talk about that much. Like over the years of working, I definitely burnt myself out doing what I'm doing because I want to do so much for people. I want to be that guy that if somebody's entrusting their business with me and they're going to say, okay, I'm going to do business with you, Joe, I feel like a huge amount of responsibility. Like I feel like this person's entrusting their business with me. They're going to get 120% of me. That's why, somebody called me on the 4th of July. A toilet blew up upstairs. I got water pouring through. Sorry, I called you on the 4th of July. Hey, no, man, I'm glad you did. I want you to think of me that way. But so much of that over so much of a long period of time, wears you down as well. And working too much for me wasn't a good thing. And I'm thinking now that I'm saying this, that did attribute to some of my relapse was the fact that I was just working so much and family and working and responsible, Clark, and being on point. Boom, I'm there. Boom, I'm there. Boom, I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm not here for me.
Yeah, you're not doing the things for yourself to keep you on a healthy plane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're doing so much for others, which is, good to a certain point, but you can't make it your whole existence. And that's what I did. And that's what I've kind of done. And now here I am, and I'm 53 and a half, and I'm like exhausted, because felt like I worked so much. And from what I came from to where I am now, I mean, I started in an office on my own with like a dial phone. It was like, my buddies, friends of mine that saw me, what I've done from where I started to where I am now. Just some of them just can't believe it. And I'm nothing special. It's not like I'm some, like a CEO of some this. I'm just saying from where I was to where I've come to now, it's a big difference. And it was just a lot of hard work and grinding, but it also wore me out a little bit.
Yeah. When you have that addictive personality, it can manifest in work, just like drugs, alcohol, shopping, sex, anything else. Gambling.
Sure, shopaholics. Yeah, there's people that buy things. They get a rush when they buy it. Or to the workaholic thing, we were talking about the gentleman that you were talking about before that were saying, hey, I'm not into drugs and alcohol, but boy, making money is like, it's like a high. And gambling, like I never really got into gambling. That wasn't my thing. For fun, I'd go to the Mohegan Sun or whatever and lose $300 and eat and go home and have a great night, see a concert or something. But there's some people that, their whole life's existence goes into gambling and, next time I'm going to win big. You'll see I hear it, I hear it because there are cross-addicted people that you meet over the years that are sober in AA, but then they struggle, went to gambling or, pornography or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's true.
I went to Gamblers Anonymous for years.
Yeah.
The people in there were so classic. I loved it.
Where would you go? Atlantic City? Wait, where would you?
Scratch off? Atlantic City.
Yep.
My host from Atlantic City moved up to Foxwoods. He would send a limo down. So I'm going to Foxwoods all the time.
So you're coming into Connecticut. Yeah.
Flying out to Vegas, like I went out there 5 times in a year. Just like
you were going.
Yeah, I was going.
If they're flying out, if you're going out to Vegas 5 times a year, yeah. And were you drinking or anything?
Oh yeah.
You were okay. Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
Of course.
Kind of went hand in hand.
Right.
Yeah.
But my run in the casinos was unbelievable. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then sports betting, 6 months I had to declare bankruptcy.
Really? So you did well in the casinos, but then you went to football and stuff, and you just got killed.
Just got killed.
Those Packers. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my. It's like a episode of The Sopranos or something.
You could take the most meaningless game and you put a big chunk of money on it, and it's like the Super Bowl.
Yeah. 2 teams you don't even you could care less, like this Seattle Seahawks versus the Cowboys or something. It's like you could care less. It's not like your hometown Jets or somebody you're into when you were growing up. I don't know, you're a Giants fan or Giants. Yeah. So yeah. But you hear stories of that too. GA and people that lose a life savings and lose, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I lost it all.
What's it? DraftKings is the big one people can people can really get in trouble.
I talk to the college kids now, and they all gamble. Like DraftKings.
Yeah.
They're all like, be careful, man.
Yeah.
Sneaks up on you.
It might have put the mafia out of business because years ago, you had the little chits that you'd fill out, and then DraftKings took over, and now, I mean, you wouldn't even have to go to a private.
Why would you risk getting your legs broken?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, they were smart when the government. I think the government figured out that people are going to gamble anyway. Let's let them do it this way. I mean, I don't follow it. I don't know a lot about it. I know that there was High Lie in Connecticut. In Milford, there was High Lie, which was a lot of Whitey Bulger's people were running that. Yeah. And I had a friend that worked there. He was a bartender there, and there was a lot of people that gambled on High Lie. And
as a kid, my parents would take me there.
Yeah,
and we would gamble, and it was just like the greatest thing ever.
Did you go to the one in Connecticut?
Yeah.
It's like the most.
Are they still open?
No,
it's all closed.
It closed. Yeah, it's the most. I don't understand it. It's like a wicker basket with this ball. Then they started saying that some of the players were being, like bribed to lose and stuff like that. I guess they're from Portugal. Most of the guys are Portuguese or something. So, that's funny. But no, it's back to, back to the whole PTSD addiction thing. It pops up in different ways very quickly. I know there's rageaholics too. There's people that get off on being angry and yelling at people and stuff. I know there's control issues. There's people that are addicted to back to the business thing with, building buildings or owning things or buying things and running things, and just they're into that whole control. They want to feel like they're the king of their castle, which I guess I can understand, but I don't know. Things can get out of control quickly, no matter what it is, I guess, Clark. Yeah.
Looking back on your life, where you're at now, to sum things up, is there regrets? Is there life lessons? Is there daily habits? Is there routines? Sum up Joe where he's at now, or where he's come from.
I am just so grateful. I'm probably one of the most grateful people you'll ever meet, and I have the most incredible wife in the world. I mean, my wife is just one of the most wonderful people. She's not like that lovey-dovey type, she's more like tough love type, person. And she's just a great gal. And she's my best friend. She's my best friend. And I'm really lucky about that. My kids are great kids. My son's a little scooch. He's kind of like me a little bit, which a little bit kind of worries me, but he's working. It's summertime. He's in college. He's working. He's with his friends. He doesn't get in any trouble yet, knock on wood. He's doing okay. He's going to school. He's doing his thing. My daughter just graduated college, and she's in her career now. She got a job right away. She's doing great. I'm very proud. The only regret that I have is not having more kids. I wish I had another kid or two, but I didn't know that, because I was broke for so many years. I was poor for so long, and I just wanted to make sure that, I gave my kids the best I could with health insurance and pay for their education. My daughter left college with no debt, no student loans, no anything. I was able to pay for all of that for her, on my own and that kind of thing. So I'm just so grateful. And looking back on it, it's like, again, I did feel just a lot of despair, and felt like I couldn't get out of a hole that I was in with the troubles that I was having with active alcoholism and addiction back when I had, and then slowly and surely, and it sounds so crazy when they say one day at a time, and this too shall pass, and things will get better. Because when you're in it, you don't feel like it's gonna, but it really does. It really does. And looking back, I've just got so much gratitude and so much love for the people who have been there for me. Those phone calls at night. Hey man, I don't know. Something doesn't feel right. I'm struggling, man. I don't know. I feel like doing something. I crack open a beer. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that. Hey man, calm down. What's going on? Just so many great people that I've met in sobriety. And I don't have a lot of regrets. I mean, maybe some of the things that I did to hurt some people in the past when I was drinking and drugging and stuff like that. But to look back on it now, I'm just a miracle, Clark. It's a miracle I'm here today talking to you. I'm so glad I reached out to you, man, because when I saw you and I heard you, I'm like, this is somebody that I probably would have been friends with. Growing up, you would have been like, the older guy like I'd hang out with or something and get into fights with or something. But that's in the past. But being an adult now and being a man and looking back on it, I'm just so grateful, man. It's really just a story of like you said, of hope and just like day by day. It's incredible. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've come a long way, and I hope people will just take away like you can get as down and out, on the streets, homeless, drug addict. You can
No family. Yeah.
family not disowning you. You could be like me, facing life in prison, thinking things are over, and then we're both sitting here. People want things instantly. They want everything fixed instantly.
Instant gratification.
It's like it took me. I was on a downward slide for decades. And you were on a downward slide for a long while, and it doesn't turn around in a day, a week, a month. But if once you put your mind and heart and soul to it, it will turn around.
So I just want to say, as long as it takes to walk into the woods, you have to walk back out of the woods. I mean,
Right.
yeah, but I could tell you that it is true. The walk back out doesn't take as long as you think it's going to take. That's the
Right.
thing. A lot of times you turn around, you start walking back out. The sun starts coming through the leaves, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're out of the woods, and now you're having a great life. It's unbelievable, man.
Congrats, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Clark. It's
All
an
right.
honor.
And there you have it, people. I have people in here just to show you anything is possible, to give you inspiration for your own lives. So, Joe got shot 4 times as a 17-year-old, went off to the military, came home, became a drug addict on the street. Family wouldn't have anything to do with him, and turned it around, owns a successful insurance company that he sold. He's still in the insurance business. Anything can happen in life. There's seasons to life. When you're in a cold, dark winter, just don't give up, and just give it time to turn around. It doesn't turn around instantly, but it will turn around. Just give it time. We'll see you next week. Peace.